and welcome to Pan Society Radio. I'm Laura Giles, the co-founder of Pan Society and your host for today's show. Now, we just entered into autumn, and of course, we here at Pan mark the equinox as one of our holy days. So I want to take the time to explain the energy of autumn in the Wheel of Life. Before we do that, though, let's open sacred space by calling in the elements. I call to the element of earth to keep us grounded in truth and love and the desire to do good things. I call to the element of air and thank you for bringing us gifts of discernment, creativity, and hopefully clear communication so that what is said is what needs to be said and what is heard is what needs to be heard. I call to the element of fire and ask that you bring us the power to do our work in spreading the message of Pan, but also the responsibility to do it in a way that is good for all. I call in the element of water and thank you for bringing us flexibility so that we can zig when we need to zig and zag when we need to. I also thank you for bringing us the ability to connect to others in a meaningful, heartfelt way, and for allowing us to be in a heart space so that we can feel that deep connection. To continue that spirit of gratitude, I'd like to thank you, our listeners, for listening, sharing our show on social media, and for sending in your questions and donations. We're here for you. We need your support to continue our work. So every donation, even if it's only a pledge for $1, helps. Those dollars multiply when you put them together, so keep them coming in. If you haven't pledged yet and would like to, you can do that on our website at pansociety.net. When you give, we can continue to give, and that love train just keeps going. That's what it's all about, folks. Reciprocity and giving value for value received. Enough said. Okay, our topic is autumn, but before we can talk about that in any way that makes sense, we have to give it some context. And for that, we go to the Wheel of Life. The Wheel of Life, or sometimes called the medicine wheel, has been used by many cultures since time began. But we aren't using it in modern mainstream society because we're just too smart for that. We look at science to tell us what we need to know and discount wisdom that we can't see or prove. I say that's why we're so disconnected now. I can't overestimate the beauty, teachings, and power that the Wheel of Life has brought to my life and encourage you to check it out with an open mind. To kind of explain what the Wheel of Life is, let's look at a quote from Lakota elder Black Elk. He said, "Everything the power of the world does is done in a circle. The sky is round. And I have heard that the earth is round like a ball, and so are the stars. The wind, in its greatest power, whirls. Birds make their nests in circles, for theirs is the same religion as ours. The sun comes forth and goes down again in a circle. The moon does the same, and both are round. Even the seasons form a great circle in their changing, and always come back again to where they were. The life of a man is a circle from childhood to childhood, and so it is in everything where power moves. Our teepees were round like the nests of birds. And these were always set in a circle, the nation's hoop." So if everything the power of the world does is done in a circle, don't you think it's wise to get in that circular flow and ride it? The circle has no beginning and no end. It just goes on forever. When you move through your life in a willful manner, thinking that you're going to control everything that happens, you're going to be disappointed because we don't budget in for downtime or rest. When we're setting up the manifestation plan, for most of us, it's something like go to college, get married, get a great job, drive a nice car, live in a really nice house, have some kids, save for retirement, travel, and be happy. The Wheel of Life doesn't move in an upward trajectory. It's a circle. It moves from birth to maturity to decline, death, gestation, and rebirth. While those things happen in any given life, when they do, we see them as challenges to overcome. Nothing is supposed to ever end. The party just goes on forever. Nature doesn't move like that. So it's a mind shift. Old-time Aboriginal societies were deeply connected to the seasons and paid lots of attention to the sun and moon because it told them when to do things like plant and harvest. Their very lives depended on it. If they missed the pilcher run or planted at the wrong time, they could all starve that winter. The old wives' tales about if you see a halo around the moon, you can expect rain or snow. Or maybe you've heard this one. Red sky at night, sailor's delight. Red sky in the morning, sailor's warning. That's to indicate good or bad weather. Well, that's not just folk tales. They're true. People learn how to read the signs of nature by paying attention. So what about now? We can just flip the weather app on and see what to expect outside. No attention or preparation necessary. We can just go to the grocery store and buy what we need when we're hungry. Is it still necessary to pay attention to the seasons? Okay, so remember that we have no dogma here, no hard fast rules, but I say yes, it matters. It matters so much that we observe the transition of the seasons at Pan. Ecclesiastes chapter 3 verse 1 says, "To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven." That's essentially what the seasonal observations are about. We mark them to stay in tune with nature, the earth, and ourselves, and know that it's the right time or it's not the right time for something. There are many medicine wheels, and they're not all the same. Generally speaking, they reflect the needs of the culture that uses them and the way that life shows up in nature around them. So the North Pole is not the same as the South Pole. At Pan Society, in our wheel of life, the element for autumn is water, the direction is west. The time of day is evening or sunset. So if you heard something else or use something else, feel free to stick with your system that you already know if it's working for you. Okay, so the elements for the autumn in the Pan wheel is water, like I said. If you're not familiar with the elements, I'd like for you to keep an open mind about what I'm about to say. Remember that there's no dogma, so feel free to write off anything I say at any time. You are the captain of your ship. Let your experience be the thing that guides you. Don't ever give anyone your power and say things like, a lower child said this, so that's the way that it is. It's just a starting point. Accept it if it works for you. Don't if it doesn't. Okay? Okay. The reason why we pay so much attention to the elements in Pan is because we're at a place in time where so much of our indigenous spiritual wisdom has been ignored, distorted, or lost. We can't necessarily trust what's out there now. If something is old and authentic, it may not fit with where we are in the modern world. If something has been distorted or just plain made up, it also may not work for us. What I'm talking about is the stories about gods and goddesses, rituals, techniques, explanations for how the world is and why the world is, that kind of thing. Through time and distance, things can get lost in translation. It's like the story of Grandma's ham. If you haven't heard it, here's how it goes. A husband and his wife were in their kitchen. The husband was sitting at the kitchen table reading his newspaper, while his wife was preparing a ham for dinner. The husband watched the wife cut off about 1 inch from either end of the ham. When he asked her why she cut the end off, she said, "That's the way my mom prepared it." The husband asked, "Why did your mom cut it off?" And the wife didn't know. Later, the wife called her mom to find out why she cut off the ends of the ham. Her mom said, "Because that's the way my mom did it." The wife's grandma had passed away several years earlier, but her grandpa was still living. So she called Grandpa and asked Grandpa, "Hey, Grandpa, why did Grandma cut off the ends of the ham?" He thought about it for a moment, and then he said, "So the ham could fit in the baking pan." Sometimes we do things the way they've always been done without understanding why. We don't know what's valuable, practical, or useful. It just is the way it is, so we keep doing it, even if there's another better way. What I see more often is that we either don't understand the old ways because our culture is so different now, or we make substitutions because the old ways are inconvenient or the old tools are no longer available. It's like substituting almond milk for cow's milk or rice flour for wheat flour. Anybody who's ever done that knows you're not going to get the same result. So to get around that and see what's true, we go to the elements and the archetypes. The elements are older than the gods. They're older than the New Age, Buddhism, Christianity, Judaism, or even the Tao. They're used by most cultures and they don't change. Wherever you see them, as in astrology, for example, they're always the same. Doesn't matter we're talking about 100 years ago, 1,000, or 10,000. They're always the same. So by calling in the elements, it's like going to the source. The element for fall is water. Water is feminine. It's yielding, flowing, and adaptable. Water has a soft power. If you steadily drop one small drop of water on someone's head, it can torture them. They call that Chinese water torture. A steady drip of water can wear a hole in a stone. That's the power of water. Water is emotional. This is the part of us that feels. Without a heart to love, what would be the point in life? So water and emotions make life worthwhile. Water is about purification. It cleans things and makes them new. Water also heals and nurtures. There are many holy wells and springs that are still to this day credited with healing powers. Some have been found to have high concentrations of minerals like calcium pools in Pamukkale, Turkey, or the Dead Sea. Some have healing powers that can only be accredited to the gods or saints of the spring. Nothing can live without water. Another important feature of water is that it allows us to connect. This is a really important value of Pan society. Without connection, sovereignty can turn into tyranny. Without connection, oneness can never be. In some Native American traditions, water is so important that everyone starts each day by giving gratitude to the water for its life-giving properties. And did you know that throwing coins in a fountain and making a wish is an ancient practice that used to be a way to communicate with the dead? Yeah, people threw coins or sometimes other items of value into waterways or wells as a token of sacrifice for the blessings that they wanted. They thought the water conveyed their words to the dead more easily. So one thing that you can do this fall is to tap into your emotional life. Pay attention to how your relationship with the ancestors is. Ask yourself, how's my relationship with water? Am I grateful for it? Do I even drink it? Do I notice and care for the natural waterways around me? In the astrological wheel of life, one sign from each of the elements of earth, air, water, and fire exists in each season so that the entire season of fall won't feel the same all the way through. What I mean is, fall starts in September, right? In Virgo, which is an earth sign. Then it quickly transitions to Libra, which is an air sign. Then Scorpio, which is water. Then Sagittarius, which is fire. So even though there's water energy all the way through the fall, it's influenced by the moon, which is also water, by the way, that transitions through the heavens in different signs. I bring this up only to say that they're wheels within wheels. It's not one big homogeneous thing. If you look at the Pan logo, you can see this. We obviously blatantly ripped off the Tai Chi, or yin-yang symbol, from Taoism. One color represents the masculine energy, the other is feminine. The swirl represents that everything is both masculine and feminine. If you took a cross-section of the circle at any point, you can never come up with a part that's all masculine or all feminine. It just flows from one thing to the other, sometimes having more masculine influence, sometimes more feminine. The seasons are like that too. While there is one dominant energy, there are also other energies at play too. To see what these are, let's look at what we know about fall. It's the time that the leaves fall. It gets colder, it gets darker earlier, and the darkness lasts longer, right? So those are kind of obvious things. Everybody knows that. Now let's think about the implications of all of that. You don't have to really know a lot more than that to already get us started in a sense of what this fall energy is bringing with it. So let's start with the darkness. Energetically, darkness is feminine. So we know that we're entering into a more feminine time. Feminine energy is about introspection, intuition, nurturing, resting, emotions, collaboration, passion, and creativity. Darkness is about what is unseen. This can be scary for people who like to be in control and know what's coming, but the darkness is where innovation lies. You can't create something new from something that's already here. You have to go to places that you and others don't see. So like Ecclesiastes says, there is a time for everything. Everything has a purpose. When you align your body, mind, and spirit with the energy that's already here, you're going to be in the flow of life. Things will probably be a lot easier because you've got the universe behind you instead of trying to push a rock uphill. You know what I'm saying? So what do you do with this darkness? You move into it. Go into your spooky places and the things that scare you and see what there is to see. Endure it. Explore it. I'm a Scorpio rising. We're really at home in the dark. So speaking as someone who likes to do this, I can tell you that it can be fun. All right, maybe not fun, but at least worthwhile. If you're one of these people who likes roller coasters, you can think of it like that. It's up and down and shake you up, but at the end of it, you're okay. And if you paid attention to what you went through and didn't just close your eyes and act like it's not happening, you'll grow. Sometimes we put our own monsters in the closet. We say something like, dating is scary. It'll kill me. I can't do this. So a dating monster lives in the closet. We don't all have a dating monster, so it's not a real thing. It's just something we conjured up from a bad experience that may not have happened to us or may not even happen at all. So when we explore this darkness where the dating monster lives, it could be that he's a fluffy puppy and not some big hairy fiend, and he's really not so scary after all. Or let's say that there's this really big scary monster in a closet that came from a dark and scary childhood of abuse and addiction. So that's real, right? So spending time with your little child self there might help you to see that you're a big grown adult now who can keep yourself safe. Or maybe you see that the scary abuser from your past is now a weak and powerless adult who lacks the ability to harm you. These might seem like really mild discoveries, but when they're your discoveries, they can feel huge. The implications of things like this can be life altering. If you never open that dark closet, you never get that growth. So that's what fall is about. Going into the dark places and shining a light there. Like I said earlier too, the darkness is where you find brilliant creative ideas. I don't know the first thing about any inventors or artist inspiration, but I would guess that they don't look at each other's things and go, if I just stole that idea and tweaked it, I could make it even better. No, that's kind of for logical, linear people like IT people. Sorry, IT people. Creatives, like really innovative creatives, come up with stuff that nobody has ever heard of or thought of before. This is the stuff that revolutionizes industries and cultures. If you're still inside the box, you're standing in the light. You've got to get outside of the box sometimes and into the dark. All right, so let's look at some of these other obvious qualities of fall. We said fall is a time for leaves falling. This is an indication that it's time to let go of things. In Western society, we're always buying new stuff. Rather than throwing out the old stuff, we just buy a bigger house and store it all. How crazy is that? I have 7 brothers and sisters, but when I was little, there were only 5 of us. We had 3 kids in one room and only one tiny closet and a dresser. All of our stuff for all 3 kids would fit in that one closet and that one dresser. If you're close to my age, I know you were like me. That's just how everybody lived. That includes all seasons of clothes, toys, shoes, everything. And that doesn't happen today. How many of us have walk-in closets and need a closet just for your shoes? Come on, ladies, you know who I'm talking to. I'm not much of a shopper, and even I have snow boots, high heel boots, flat boots, brown boots, red boots. You know what I'm saying? As a society, we don't do well with getting rid of things. I'm not just talking about possessions. This includes jobs that we've outgrown, friendships, relationships, ideas, limitations, hobbies, diets, emotions. Oh, so many things. When we aren't introspective and quiet, we can miss the whispers of our heart that's telling us it's time to let go. The tight shoulders can mean that it's time to ease off that stressful friendship. Your sleepless nights could mean that you're chasing something that's costing you your health. Maybe this thing is not as valuable as you think it is. Your overgrown garden could be telling you you need to let go of some of your work or social obligations so that you can spend time doing what feeds your body and soul. The clues about what's ready to move out of your life are always there. You just have to pay attention. That's why we do moon circles. We only did the holy days of the quarters and the cross quarters. We'd only check in 8 times a year. By doing moon circles too, we have 32 opportunities per year if you're a woman and 20 if you're a man to say, hey nature, how are you doing? How am I doing? Are we in sync? What can you teach me today? This grows your wisdom and pays huge dividends in sensing the meaning in life. Trust me. Just go to a few consecutively and see if you don't agree. All right, so back on track. So we need to know how to make some changes. Many of us think about this for 2 weeks around New Year's when we have overindulged and are feeling bad about it. Either we spend too much, we ate too much, we partied too much, and now we want to reform. The Tao Te Ching says to chart the difficult when it's easy. Act when something has not yet come to be. That's what being in the wheel is all about. It's about taking time to notice what's going on in the natural world and following suit so that nothing ever becomes too big. All you have to do is look around to know that this is not what we do. We have an epidemic of obesity, for example. If we acted when we were 10 or 20 pounds overweight, we never may get to 50 or 100 pounds overweight. If we started budgeting and cutting back when we're $1,000 in debt, we could never have $10,000 in debt. Disease is the same way. It's usually really slow. There is time to repair damage or prevent it if we eat well every day, do some mild exercise, and breathe. We don't have to suffer from debilitating physical or mental illness if we practice good habits every day. I know it's a commitment. I also know you hear this all the time. It's common sense, but not so easy to do in a society that values yang energy, fire, instant gratification, and winning all the time versus resting. How are you supposed to get ahead if you actually sleep 8 hours? Well, that's a choice. Nature spends half the year in a yang or active masculine phase and half in yin or a passive or feminine phase. It's called balance. If you want balance, that's kind of what you have to commit to. This doesn't mean that you can't run in the yin phase. It just means you pay more attention to slowing down. It's about moderation. Remember, too, that spring and fall are kind of buffer seasons. It's not full-on yin or yang, but more like transition times. So it's easier to make those adjustments now because we ease into them. It doesn't go from 15 hours of daylight to 10 overnight. It's a gradual adjustment. When you adjust gradually too, it'll be easy. For instance, it gradually gets cold. Usually, right now we're having daytime temperatures in the 70s, some 80s, and some 60s. I can handle that. If we went from 70 to 30, I'd really be struggling. The body just doesn't adapt that easily. So when it's in the 30s, look at the animals. What are they doing? They're mostly chilling. Most are less active. They're conserving their energy and resting. For many animals, spring is a time for giving birth. Maybe they conceived in the fall, so females are resting to prepare their body for birth. If they were all active, they could just be using up the juice that the baby needs to grow and develop. So this is perfect. You should be slowing down too, even if you don't have a baby brewing. Yin is a rest time. Your body needs to rest from all that activity you did in the hot sun. I know it was weeks or months ago, but nature's slow. It depletes slowly and rejuvenates slowly. Thank God, or we might all die of cancer or some horrible disease. So if you don't give your body a chance to recuperate, you start to decline. In Chinese medicine, they say that you have all your Jing or inherited life force when you're born. If you use it all up, you croak. This is why you see athletes who appear to be in the prime of their life who just fall over of a heart attack. You have to go hard all the time to be a champion at that level. There's usually a price to pay. Usually because they don't have downtime. But your body isn't the only thing that needs to recuperate. Your spirit and mind do too. Anxiety is epidemic in the West. That's where the mind is going all day and all night. It's thinking about what could happen and what did happen. None of that's here right now, though. So, woof, give yourself a break. Slow down. Stop. Sit with a cup of tea and smell the wet leaves. Breathe in the crisp air. Chill. Enjoy. Your lungs and large intestine will love you for it. Your lungs are the receptacle for grief, regret, and guilt. You want to release those things before we go into winter. If not, you can end up with pneumonia, a cold, flu, or diarrhea. Strong lungs mean a strong immune system. If you're not doing at least 5 minutes of breathing each day, maybe it's time to start. Keep it slow and deep. Okay, so what else about the fall? He said it gets colder. Cold causes us to contract and bring in. What this means for people is that it's a time to conserve energy. This goes along with slowing down. If you're a go, go, go person, you may want to cut back on your obligations. You might say, I do, that's why I end up with these extra pounds and fight to get rid of at New Year's. Okay, I hear you. Another thing that happens at this time of year is harvest. When we're in a time of plenty, when the last big harvest comes in, these are things like fruits and vegetables, blackberries, plums, apples, pears, pumpkins, squash, leeks, and parsnips. It's a good time to eat locally and seasonally. What comes up in your area at this time is what's going to be what your body needs. I know it's fabulous to be able to get strawberries year round, but nature's wise. She really does give you everything you need when you need it. You've got to learn to trust her and don't be willful and do what you want. Let her guide you. She won't steer you wrong. So we talked earlier about letting go, but harvesting or bringing things in to store them for later is a part of fall too. We're in a conservation and storing up phase. So maybe those few extra pounds you put on during the harvest are not so bad if you use that stored fat later in the spring, as nature will tell you to do. Spring crops are not so carb heavy or abundant. Think about what they are, like lettuce. So if you eat with nature, you really won't have to worry about the ebb and flow of weight. It's really just part of it. Bears get fat in the fall and are lean in the spring. So what are you bringing in? What is your harvest? It's good to take a look. So often we say, I don't know what happened. How did I get here? We all get where we are step by step. If you don't know what seeds you're planting, you might end up with celery when you wanted watermelons. Look at what you're harvesting. Is that what you wanted? If not, it's time to switch gears to make sure that when it comes time to plant again, and now is not that time, you do so with intention so that you get what you want. Is your crop plentiful and healthy? If not, how was your cultivation? Did you water those seeds? Did you weed them? Unless you plant in really fertile ground, nothing grows without cultivation. That's usually known as wishing. Wishing doesn't usually result in a harvest. It has to be grounded in something, usually work. That's what being in the wheel of life is all about. It's about living intentionally and looking in the mirror from time to time to get a realistic view of how you're doing. Now, nobody's grading you or doing this for you. It's introspective and self-regulated. If you don't do it, you won't learn from your past behaviors. If you don't peer into the dark, you'll never see what's there. If you aren't honest with yourself, your feedback will be of limited value. When we do moon circles, nobody's there judging or keeping score. It's just an opportunity to self-correct and open to new ways of seeing things. It's all up to you. If you use the seasons as a guide to getting through life, I promise you that your life will improve. This past harvest moon was one of the most impactful for me in a long time because I asked myself the same questions that I'm asking of you. How was your harvest? Did you reap what you thought you were sowing? And when you're honest with those answers, you don't have to go to a therapist, psychic, or consultant to tell you what to do. You'll have your own answers. So the direction of the fall is the west. In ancient Egypt, they buried their royal dead on the west bank of the Nile in Thebes because the west is where the dead lay. The sun sets in the west and dies for the night. This is an easy way for you to remember that west is for decline and death. In the mythological Greek story of Persephone and the goddess Demeter, Persephone was Demeter's favored daughter. She was stolen away by Hades to go to live in the underworld. Demeter, the goddess of harvest, looked all over for her but couldn't find her. In her grief, which is lung energy, remember, she did not give energy to all the flowing and growing plants, and they all began to die. People began to fear that the whole world would die. Zeus commanded that Hades release her. Hades gave Persephone a pomegranate, which condemned her to return. And this meant that she could only return to the surface for part of the year. The part of the year where she was reunited with her mother, the earth flourished with life. The time that she was with Hades, things died. So fall is the time when Persephone first leaves and the decline begins. How this relates to people in the big picture is that everyone dies. Everyone declines. In the life cycle, fall is old age. We're not dead yet, but we're headed there. We're not young and spry anymore. Maybe our hair is turning white. Our bodies are slowing down. We may not have the strength that we used to, but hopefully we've grown in wisdom. This is a rich part of life that is often avoided now. We dye our hair, get Botox, breast implants, and all kinds of things to avoid being old. This yearning for perpetual youth keeps us from being all that we can be now and keeps the young from having mentors for how to be when it's their turn to be old. Adults stand between the young and the old. The young and the old stand closest to heaven or the other world and are therefore special in a way. They find it easier to contact the dead and for the dead to contact them. This is a gift to those in between because we need the love and care of our ancestors to help us along in life. We need their guidance to transition to ancestors ourselves. If we don't have a clear pathway, we get things that you see now, like fear of death, obsession with youth, and alienation from the elderly. Now, you might be saying, hey, I'm 25. What's this got to do with me? Well, even if you're nowhere near being elderly, the fall represents a time in your life when it's appropriate to think about what is declining in you. Something's going to die in the next season. We do this as we're nearing graduation from high school, or as we're approaching the end of bachelorhood. The more we practice these transitions in a conscious way, the easier the transitions become. Think of all the people who say that high school sucked. I would imagine that at least part of that is due to the transition from middle school to high school. Maybe you didn't transition well. You weren't ready for the greater demands of school or just the logistics of being in a new place. We all have many transitions throughout our life. When you take this time to practice dying and make space for what's coming, transition just becomes part of living. It's not that big of a deal. Lots of people have anxiety about the future. They don't do well with unknowns. This is a really similar thing. Be present with what is happening and allow it to just be as it is. The next thing will just happen because that's what nature does. It's always changing. Let it. Be one with it, and you'll be one with yourself. Now, before I leave the topic of fall, I'd like to talk to you about another thing that's really important. At PANS, we don't really get into God or specific cultural practices because many people have lost those connections and don't belong to a culture that has a thriving, living, animistic practice. And we don't want to fall into false spirituality or do things in an inaccurate or inappropriate way. For this reason, our other guides are archetypes. Like the elements, the archetypes have been around since humans have been here. They're the same for all people throughout time and space. The archetypes are relatable because love is similar regardless of who's experiencing it. This is why when we watch a movie where the character experiences failure, longing, victory, or lust, we're moved by it. We've experienced it. We know what it's like. Consequently, even if we're only registering information subliminally, the archetypes speak to our soul. We don't need to be English to understand why Robin Hood is a hero. Nor do we need to be Greek to applaud Hercules for his adventures. We get it. It's universally relatable. The archetype for Autumn is a bit of a blend. She's part sage, part ruler. As the sage, she's a collector and giver of wisdom. As ruler, she's the embodiment of sovereignty. She owns her power and she uses it for the benefit of all. She's responsible and demonstrates great leadership. As I said earlier, fall is a time for old age, so it's only natural that the sage would rule here. It can take a lifetime to acquire the wisdom needed to lead properly. You might envision this archetype as a wise elder or someone like Gandalf the Grey or Yoda from Star Wars. I also mentioned that the element for fall is water. The sage/ruler is like water in that she's flexible. This is not the stern nun that smacks you on the hand with a ruler if you get the wrong answer. The sage ruler is patient, tolerant, and allows you to make mistakes. She's non-judgmental and waits for you to get where you need to be in your own time. She's there for you, providing you with support and meaning, even when you don't want to learn. She got this way because she's traveled the wheel of life and learned many things along the way, like humility, clarity, non-judgment, objectivity, discernment, and now she wants to teach them to you. Many of these qualities are the qualities of water, so you can already see the workings of the wheels within wheels. There's lots of overlapping going on. There's never solely one element or influence happening in the wheel of life, but when the sage ruler dominates, this is a time for you to step into that energy within yourself. The ruler is the epitome of sovereignty that we speak about in the mission of Pan. Think about what that means to be a good, healthy, sovereign, or ruler. Sovereign's responsible. She takes care of her people. She does what's good and right for the present moment and the future. She has an eye for the coming generation. She has healthy boundaries between herself and others. She gives, but she always makes sure that she's in a good place so that she doesn't become depleted by giving. She's also independent. Are you kind of getting some hints about maybe what your work is this fall? Now, we have a lot of people nowadays who focus on getting theirs. They whine and complain and act entitled when things aren't fair. The healthy sovereign doesn't do this. She gets hers because she creates it or earns it. She knows life isn't fair because it's always changing between abundance and lack, light and dark, male and female. She knows that for everything there's a season, and she works with this rather than uses it as an excuse to do nothing. So fall is the time to consciously grow the sage ruler energy. Notice how it shows up. Maybe it's not really strong in you, but maybe you have a coach or a boss who's a really great leader. Or maybe you're learning a sport or skill and you have a really lousy teacher who is showing you all the ways not to behave. This is teaching too. You can't have healthy, balanced ruler energy if your sage energy isn't abundant and healthy too. You need wisdom in order to rule because you need to be able to discern the difference between what's useful and what's not useful. So be sure to look to the elders, the healthy teachers, and ask them for help when you need it. Participate in life so that you get the full experience you need to know when something's good, right, and useful. You don't always have to look to someone else to tell you. Be open to not getting what you want or not seeing what you want to see. Just because you're present and you want something doesn't mean it always shows up. This is not like magic of law of attraction, poof, I wish it and there it is. Sometimes we need to see what we don't want or how not to be in order to get clear on what we do want and what we do need. If we do this with humility, grace, and acceptance, we grow. Think of how fall dies. It doesn't whine. It usually goes pretty gracefully and smoothly. Trees give up their leaves. The sun comes out a little each day. The earth transitions into a pretty calm sleep. This doesn't tend to be a season of crazy weather or big changes. Animals quietly go off to hibernate. Flowers die back, and only we people just keep on with our lives as if nothing has changed. Every day we get up and go to sleep at the same time, regardless of what the sun's doing. Now, I know it's probably not possible to tell your boss, hey, it's autumn. I need more time to lay around and sleep, so I'm going to cut back my work hours down by 2 until the sun decides to come back. But there are some modifications you can make. You can spend more time with water. Give yourself space to linger in the bath. Go float in a float tank or spend time in a steam room or spa. Contemplate the value and qualities of water. Give thanks to the water. You could spend more time in contemplative things like journaling, meditating, reading, or listening to music. This opens up the receptive parts of yourself to help you let go of things too. It can help you get in touch with your emotions as well. I can tell you about water, grieving, dying, wisdom, and all the qualities of water, but the best way to learn about it is to experience it. You're always going to be the smartest person in your life. There is no substitute for your experience. So give yourself space to sink into it. I'm not saying any of this to inspire you. I'm hoping that you take this information and explore the world around you so that you can inspire yourself. The mainstream society learns by stuffing things into their minds. It's like if they know enough, they'll be safe from anything that can harm them. So it's information overload and lots of anxiety from all those thoughts spinning around with nowhere to go. I'm going to suggest that you do something different. Just go out there and experience life mindfully. Ask the trees what they have to tell you today. Get into your imagination and listen. What is the sun doing today? What do you think you should be doing today? Listen through your body. Yesterday I was out by the river just at the right time for the evening sun to change colors. The light was so wonderful. Everything was made brighter and more alive by the golden sun. The chi coming off the river was abundant and sweet. And in that moment, it felt most like fall. Those are the moments I'm talking about. They're all around you. Soak some up. See what they have to tell you. Let it seep into your gut. And when it does, you will experience a true sense of knowing it in your bones. Then let some come up to your heart so that you feel something about it. Then, and only then, do you process it in your mind. That's holistic experiencing and knowing. When you know something through your body, heart, and mind, you truly know it. We tend to go backwards and start with the mind and then do nothing else with it. That's why we get these really great heady workshops and gain breakthroughs that last a week or a month or maybe a season before we go in search of a new one. We don't ever know anything in our soul. Let nature be your sage this season. See if what I say is true. See if your insides don't change. If you're not getting results on the inside, are you really changing anything? Anyway, I would suggest that after this, that you join the Facebook group. We have a Facebook group at Pan Universe and then a private group at Pan Society. The Pan Society group is for discussions about Pan. It's a space to share your experiences with others who share the same mindset or who are at least exploring animism. This is super important because we don't live or learn in a vacuum. This is what I see as the biggest problem with self-help industry today. You get some guru expert who tells you what to do or to think. You follow through with that and feel amazing for 90 days or so, and then you fall back right to where you were. Why? Because it's a band-aid, a patch. If you want true connection, it has to be cultivated. It's like a seed that needs to be watered, weeded, and tended. It doesn't come up overnight. It needs other seeds to feel connected and validated. When someone says, I had this experience, you can relate. It gives you social proof that you actually had an experience so you can trust it. It can sink in and become a part of you. If you have an experience or insight and it just swirls around in your head, it can drive you crazy. Or maybe it doesn't have any impact at all. You just lose sight of it in the day, and then you go back to your day-to-day life. There was a woman who went with me on my spiritual pilgrimage to England who had an epiphany while at the Chalice Well. I could see her having an emotional time. I checked on her. She said she was all right and just needed some space. I gave her that, and later she told me that she had had an insight. She wrote it down so that she could hold on to it and let it sink in. She took it to her heart, and that was the seed that blossomed into something that allowed her to make a life-changing switch. That's possible for everyone, every day. Nature has the answers. We just have to pay attention to the big nature outside of us and the small nature inside. Give it the space to be. Notice it. Cycle with it. Just don't be willful and move through your life with all your plans and power through everything. Slow down when it's time to slow down. Sleep when it's time to sleep. Mate, socialize, eat, and die when it's time. You'll find the transitions are easier and that you enjoy whatever season it is a lot more fully. Now, if you want to go deeper or broader, or just want to have more social interactions with other panists, you'll want to check out pansociety.university. There's nothing there yet, but we're creating an online university of sorts that can help you gain the skills and experiences you need to deepen your animist practice. And if this information has been valuable to you, don't forget that you can share your resources with us so that we can continue offering you content, classes, and reaching out. Donations can be made on our website at pansociety.net or on the podcast, which you can also access on the website. Please continue to like and share our content on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you all for coming, and see you next week.